Hey, Nick Darr here with Business Over a Brew. Pleased to shoot this episode at the Old Bakery Beer Company here in Alton. As a lot of you know, the location where we used to shoot the show, Great Rivers Tap and Grill, decided to close down, as businesses do sometimes, and kind of left us scrambling a little bit, looking for a location to shoot our next episode. And on very short notice, we called Lauren at Old Bakery here, and she was immediately said, sure, come down and shoot it. So just very generous of them to let us use the space on such short notice to shoot the show here. It's a really terrific business. They really run a great place here at Old Bakery. And it's a good fit for our show, too, because they're a great business. And obviously, they serve brew and make it here. So it's a terrific place to have it. If you haven't had lunch here or dinner, I highly recommend you do that. The food is terrific. The beer selection is great bourbon selection as well. So it's just a great place to hang out in a historic building here in Alton. So come check out Old Bakery Beer. And thanks again to Lauren and everybody for letting us have the show here at Old Bakery in Alton. Welcome to Business Over Brew. I'm your host, Nick Darr. This is a show where we talk business with some of the Riverbend's most interesting and influential business leaders. Pleased to be joined in this episode by Ross Laux with Laux Brickhouse. Ross, thanks for coming on the show.
Cheers.
Appreciate it, man. Just tell us a little bit about yourself and kind of your personal story.
As you said, I own Laux Brickhouse in Bethalto, Illinois. I was raised in Calhoun at an early age, moved to Bethalto before I'd even started school. So not born and raised, but pretty much raised in Bethalto. Mm-hmm. When I was growing up, Laux Brickhouse was known as Dick and Barb's, and my parents went up there most Friday nights for fish. So it was a real familiar place. It was right up the road from where we lived. And so it always kind of had an attachment to me and my family.
Right.
But as I said, I grew up in Bethalto, played basketball at Lewis and Clark, went on to a few other schools after that, Eastern Illinois, SIUE, played ball. And then from there, I became a PE teacher at Beardstown, Illinois. Moved up there for 6 years. I was the head basketball coach up there, and that's where I really kind of, I guess, grew up. Did a lot of studying there, kind of self-taught, and started going down rabbit holes, finding out what I was really interested in. And
Mm-hmm.
I would say those 6 years is really where I matured as a man and started gaining different interests. I want to say I probably became a PE teacher because my older brother is a PE teacher. And it just seemed like a easy route to go in school,
yeah,
you know.
Right, yeah.
I think that's I didn't know what I wanted to do, and that that your counselor was like, "Hey, it's your junior year. You got to figure out what your major is going to be." And so I kind of threw that one out there and went with it. When then as I kind of matured and got a little older, I quickly realized I wanted to work for myself, and I wanted to build something on my own.
Right.
So. From there, as I started getting down rabbit holes and studying things and kind of learning things on my own, business just kept striking an interest with me. And so I went home to my parents and told them, "Hey, here's my plan. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to sell my car. I'm going to start putting every penny that I can save up to. I'm going to start saving up." And I'd already, my parents were into real estate and construction, so I'd already bought a few houses.
Mm-hmm.
And had some rental properties. All that was going into the bank. I was driving a big old Tahoe for no reason at all. No kids, not married.
Right, yeah.
So I sold that.
Roomy for one guy.
Yeah. So I sold that and bought a 1996 Honda Accord. Or
Wow.
Civic, one of them.
Right.
And so all that, I mean, I was vested. I knew I had a goal, and I didn't know what that goal was, but I knew it was to get out on my own. And so I went home and I told them what I was doing. And I think when they saw that I sold my car and bought this little $1,200 Honda, they knew I was serious.
Right, yeah.
And so them being business people in town, they kind of put their ear to the ground and started hearing different opportunities and coming to me about this or that, and that's when it was no longer Dick and Barb's, it was Ned's Place, and they called me up and talked to me about that, and I had so much money in the bank, knew I had to have 20% down, so
Right.
I sat down and had a pretty short meeting at that time with the owner. And when I told him my offer, he kind of, that's not going to happen.
Not interested.
Not interested in him. That's all I can afford.
Yeah.
And I don't know, it was probably, I would say under 6 months, but close to 6 months. He called me back. Hey, is that still on the table? Yep. Deal was done. So that's we off and running from there.
Everybody thinks their business is worth a little bit more than it actually is, right?
Numbers,
right, yeah.
The math isn't mathing on that.
Right, yeah, exactly. So,
yes, they do. But it's your baby, you know, you put so much into it. So
sure.
I understand it. But yeah, that's a good point. Everybody thinks that.
Right. So just talk about that when you finally get it, you know, after it's interesting. I mean, just all in on it the way you went. Like when you finally get it, what was the feeling then?
It was a burn the boats type of thing.
Sure, yeah.
For sure. So I'd gotten married. My wife at the time was working for PNC Bank. So the move helped out one of us right off the bat, where she actually got promoted. There was an opportunity in Edwardsville. And this was after I went to her and we had made this, we had decided to do this. She didn't know what she was going to do. Right. And then this opportunity in Edwardsville popped up, kind of just, we're like, well, shoot, that's no brainer. So she kind of got a better position by moving down here. And I had the opportunity where I got out of school, you know, at the end of May as being a teacher, and we weren't going to close on it until the end of June or beginning of July, I want to, and so I came down and just straight went to work for the current owner for free. Yeah, you know, but it was right. a mentor type thing. I got to go in, you know, I'm taking notes every day. I'm meeting him there at like 5:30 in the morning every day, just going through what he does every day as a business owner, orders, money, just the preparation of opening up the business, and that. I don't know. I was probably did it for a month and a half, so maybe we didn't close until sometime in July, middle of July. So that was a real learning experience, you know, a free one, and getting to go in there at that opportunity. I learned a lot real quickly. I'd come in and maybe go into the kitchen during the lunch, out behind the bar at dinner, and just trying to figure out as much as I possibly could about that restaurant as fast as I could.
Right.
So I did that. And then we went in and we shut it down for 2 months, and we totally gutted it and remodeled it. As much as we could afford. Right. But that was a very interesting project that we took on. I'm not quite the craftsman, but I learned a lot. And so to save, you know, as much money as possible, I did as much work as possible. I think there was a point where it's like 33 straight days of like over 14 hours. Mm-hmm. You know, right, so right. We had Bethalto homecoming, which is Labor Day weekend, and that was I mean, we could not be open there because that is your money maker.
Right next to, and you're right next to it where your location is.
Yeah, so we had to get open by then, and we got open that Thursday before.
Talk about the physical transformation of the place, because it's really unrecognizable from, you know, when you bought it to where it is today.
Yeah, people.
Was that a vision you had for it when you bought it?
The vision was to get bigger, for sure. When I bought it, I think it was 10 tables and 9 bar stools. And we were able to do some things to get 2 more tables in there. So we were at about 70 people capacity. And before I had bought it, I had talked to the neighbor next door and to feel him out about how long would he be in business for, and if he would he come to me first. Right. So he had the same exact building. Theirs is I think about 600 square feet bigger, but the same family built one and then built the other. So they're pretty identical. And in between that was the parking lot, but that parking lot I didn't own. It was connected with the other building. And so he gave me a timeline of about 5 years. I'm like, okay, I think I can make some money in 5 years. 2 years later, hey, I'm retiring. Buildings for sale.
It always happens that way, doesn't it?
It did. So that forced our hand, which ended up being all right. We ended up coming to agreement buying the building next to us. So it's about 60 feet in between each building. And there was a parking lot in there. So we used that parking lot for about the first year. We went in and again gutted out that other building and built a small venue hall. that venue hall was really significant in being able to do what we've been done today. And so we get the venue hall up and running, and it's almost going for a year, and COVID hits. And we were, I don't want to use the word lucky, but we were very fortunate that we had already had some things set up into play whenever COVID hit. We had already had all our blueprints already done to connect the two buildings. We had all of our plans already approved by the city. We had a start date with our contractors. So I would say fortunate because we were prepared to do something at that moment.
Right.
And so when COVID hit and they shut us down, we followed the guidelines there for a while. We're just doing to-goes. And then instead of kind of jumping in and doing it one time, we kind of ended up doing it by steps. So I called my contractor. You start seeing in April, May, you start seeing Florida open all outside. Texas started doing it. So you start seeing these different places do things. And I call him and I say, hey man, I've seen all these outside restaurants, opening up. They can't stop you from, people are now setting up picnic tables. They can't stop you from eating outside. Outside's fine. So
Right.
I said to him, what if, this is beginning of the week. I said, if I wanted to build the foundation and I'd run it as a patio and we would wait until winter to build the walls, when could you start? We start Monday. Whoa! I don't even have any tables or chairs.
Right.
So that's what happened. And as he said, he started that next Monday, and we took a few weeks, and we had to do some different things, had to go in real quickly and try to make our kitchen a little bit bigger because we knew we were going from 70 to we were about to double real quick with the outside patio. So we
and probably a lot of people were going to be coming because you were one of the few options that had that.
Well, I didn't know if anybody would come. But
you never know, right?
With COVID, you really just had an unsettling, feeling about how things would go. Would you get backlash or, but I was optimistic that people would come and people were wanting to be outside.
Right.
So that's what we did. We did the foundation, ran everything that we needed to underground, plumbing, some electric, and we were going out on Marketplace. And I was buying any outside patio I could find. I was driving to Jacksonville and over in St. Louis, St. Charles. I was driving everywhere and finding these tables and chairs, and I was only doing the black iron ones.
You probably moved on from the Honda Accord by this point, so you didn't have to throw it all in the trunk and bring it back.
So I was, I'd take them back, and we would paint them up all black, and we'd start sticking them everywhere.
You've had such a great, successful run, and we can't interview you without talking about your athletic career and basketball in particular, because I know I'm sure you look back at that as a real key to your success as a business owner, just your success as an athlete. Yeah,
I think anybody that knows me knows I carry a little chip on my shoulder. I was never the biggest or fastest in basketball, but I think I certainly always outworked people because I had a real desire to be good. So I put a lot of work into being a good player, playing on my own and practicing and doing all that you have to do, training. And I think that willingness or eagerness to want to be good is also what kind of drives me in business is I want to be good, but I don't want to fail at all. So I'm willing to. I don't care about outworking somebody. I care about working hard enough that I'm happy with myself and the effort that I've put in.
You're the youngest of four.
I'm the youngest of four. Yep.
So, and I know you talk a little bit about. We want to talk about your business mostly, but it had to be a little bit. Just talk about the experience. Your older brother Ty, in particular, was a great basketball player at CM, and you're following in his footsteps. I don't know how many years later, but I guess 5.
Yeah. So Ty's he graduated in 93. Yeah, 93, and I graduated in 2002. So there's like 9-year difference between me and him.
Right.
Not only was he a really good basketball player, but he was on one of the best CM teams of all time.
Right.
we always kid around in the family. We call them East St. Louis City Champs, because at the time there was two East St. Louis high schools, and they beat both of them in the regionals. Maybe it might have been the regional championship and then sectionals.
Which didn't happen very often.
They took down both of them at the time. This little school from Bethalto, CM takes down both East St. Louis schools. So we always kid around calling them City Champs. So not only was Ty really good, he was the player of the year in the area, went on to college, but his team was really good. So what that brought to the community I was in third grade, what you saw the community do and gather around that team and see that they went to sectional championship, got beat by Edwardsville, and you see all that growing up, and you want to be a part of that as well. So that was another motivational factor into being good, and you start putting in the work to be good, because he's telling you what it takes to be good, and he's the driving force in trying to make you better and instilling this hard work attitude into it. Like, he's really letting you know, because he went to college, this is what it takes to be a college player or be a good player. So I know with me, and that hard work, it just kind of put a chip on your shoulder and built your confidence, though, as well. So, yeah, he was a huge influence in me as a basketball player, me as a person, and which later on became me as a businessman.
Right. I always joke with your brother Tom. I was like, "Why? How come you couldn't play basketball? Like, what was your problem?" Anyway, so I assume you pretty much grew up with a basketball.
I did, yeah, absolutely, yeah.
In your hand from a young age.
Yeah, Ty put a basketball in my hand, and Todd tried to put boxing gloves in my hand. So.
And you got a little bit of both, I guess. So,
yeah.
We'll talk a little bit about just the growth of the business. Number one has been amazing, and talk about how you've been able to accomplish that and handle it.
Yeah, so going back to accomplishing, we built that patio, and I'll bring it back is that we're so fortunate about that time being prepared to pivot, I guess you'd say. Right. And so we pivoted to the patio instead of the buildings, and what happened with us is that because we were one of the only people around, like you said, that had that going on at that time, it brought in people from outside of Bethalto. We were a very small place, so we were basically a neighborhood little bar. Mm-hmm. And so that brought in people from Godfrey and Edwardsville and Alton and Jerseyville and farther out. Right. And so when they saw this, and they're just like, because word of mouth spread, there is a place that you can go to right now. And then, we had had designs made of what was coming after that. And so people are seeing these designs and these garage doors, and that, brought them back. So we got discovered by a lot of people we wouldn't have got discovered with, or I guess we got discovered faster than maybe we would have.
I think one of the things that businesses in general and restaurants in particular struggle with is just not having an identity. Talk a little bit about the identity of Laux Brickhouse and how you came up with that concept and where you came up with it.
That's a good point. Because as you go around and look, I'll go off that a little bit. You go around to different restaurants and you can't ask yourself what is this place. You go down their menu and it just kind of goes places. Yeah. But even their atmosphere, you can't figure it out. I think one that everybody could say they know what they are is Fast Eddie's. Mm-hmm. That's a good one. I think right here at Old Bakery, they know what they are. Right. Yeah. So that's a good point. And I didn't do this on purpose. This is just what my vision was whenever I went to set something up. I wanted it to be a family sports bar. And I'll say this. I don't go to this place, but Buffalo Wild Wings. Mm-hmm. They were influential in us because me and my wife lived in Jacksonville all the time, and we went there to watch games and things like that because there wasn't a whole lot more to do. Sure. And you go in and the sports and just what they did with wings and appetizers and wraps, that was who I kind of was. And you bring the sports and beer into it. And then being from Bethalto, I knew that Bethalto needed something like that. Sure. There was a need there for what I would do if I was to own a restaurant. Because if you're in Bethalto and you want to go if me and you wanted to go watch a game, you had to go to Alton or Edwardsville every time to go watch a game and have a beer with a buddy. So we knew what our concept wanted to be, and we were pretty sure that that's what Bethalto needed, and so it went hand in hand. They needed it. That's what we wanted to provide, and then we've been true to that from the get-go. We're always going to have sports on our TVs. We're going to have as many TVs that we can put in the room. Whenever, you go sit there, or there, you're going to be able to see 4 to 5 TVs no matter what spot you sit in. So that was important to us, and you're not coming in our place. There's not going to be news on the TV. It is always going to be sports. Right. I don't care if it's a rerun from the night before. I don't care what it is, but the sports are always going to be on the TV. So, but we did not want to be a sports bar that was not welcoming to the community and to families. Mm-hmm. So you don't see us market alcohol and parties and things like that all the time. We market food and a family sports bar atmosphere.
Right. Yeah.
And it's one of the things I put grill on the end of it, mm-hmm. and that for a reason.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Talk about the hall part of it and how that came about. And I know you talked about how you got the building. It was maybe a little earlier than what you thought, but was that a concept that you'd always been thinking about? Probably also something that maybe you saw a need in Bethalto for.
We kind of thought that by the time he retired, that we'd be buying the building mm-hmm. and connecting the buildings at the same time.
Right.
But how it worked out with it happening earlier, we had to figure it out. What are we going to do with this now? Because now we got to have this building make money right off the bat.
Can't have it sit empty and just, right, yeah.
So got to thinking, what does Bethalto need now? What could be something that isn't is a need that we could profit off of and it fall into our line of who we are. And I think we found a niche of not being this huge 500, 400 person reception hall or
right.
party hall, venue hall. We were 150 person. So you could have showers and retirement parties, and there's not a party you can't have that you can't put in our brick hall. So we may have a party one day that's 30 people shower, and we'll flip it that night to it being a 150 person small reception. So we get everything in between, 16-year-old birthdays, tons of graduations, retirement parties, birthday parties, you name it. We have it, and we have a golf simulator in there now. So it stays with our brand of sports. Mm-hmm. So you can rent the whole room with the sports or with the golf simulator, or you can go in there and just pay per hour if it's not booked for a party for the golf simulator. So I think we've done a really good job of staying in our lane and what we are with everything that we've done.
Has there been a night where you've been able to sit back and just kind of look out at the place and say, this is pretty cool, this is kind of what I had in mind? Or are you too busy?
I think you probably know this. That's hard to do.
Sure,
as a businessman. Absolutely. It's really hard to do. My wife brings it up to me sometimes because I stay just probably like you. You stay in that kind of grind mode and you don't look at the bigger picture. It's hard to because I don't want to look at the bigger picture and at all get comfortable. Yeah, I always feel like my business could go down tomorrow. Mm-hmm. Like and if it's economy, if it's who knows, all these different things could potentially bring you down. And so I don't like to get comfortable. To answer your question, not like I probably should.
Right. Yeah. This is probably a lot of answers to this for you, but who have been some of the biggest influences and mentors in your life, and who's really helped you on the business side?
On the business side, I'll start, when it comes to a restaurant, people aren't going to know this name, but he is my food rep, and his name's Don Frankie. And Frankie, I call him Frankie, but me and Don hit it off right from the get-go. When you start, I don't want to say interviewing, but when you start meeting with different food reps, and you meet with all kinds of reps mm-hmm. when you go to open up a restaurant, me and him hit it off as he, to me, wasn't the normal salesman.
Right.
He was going to tell me how it was. Mm-hmm. And he helped big time in the process. He still helps me. I still call him all the time. But he took me around to other people, and he got me connected with a lot of people, where I built relationships where I could call them and pick their brains. And I'd say the next one on that list for the restaurant is Eddie Scholler. I remember remember calling, finally working up the courage to call Eddie. I'd met him a couple of times through Frankie. And when I finally called him and gave him his number, and one of his lines, he's like, I never thought you'd call. I'm like, oh, why is it? People don't call me. Mm-hmm. I'm like, maybe intimidated because of what he built or something that. I don't know. But he has been, when I first decided I was building that building, connecting him, he was the first guy I called. And because he'd already done something similar to that. And what he was able to come in and say, don't do that, don't do that. Oh, do that. Oh, I love that. Oh, I hate that. Where are you going to? He's like, you're going from 12 seats to holding 200 people. Where are you going to put all your dry products? Where are you going to put? You're going to have 10 fryers in here instead of 4. Where are you going to hold all your fryers? Back to the drawing board.
Right.
Where are you going to hold all your napkins and to-go containers now? Because you're tripling them. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of things, the flow of the kitchen he helped me with. Just those
little
detailed things that only someone who'd already done it at that size of magnitude could really help you out with. And I'll give you a third one. Is my, I already talked about Ty, but is my brother Todd. Because when I was teaching, he started opened up Pride. Mm-hmm. And he started doing something that I wanted to do on my own, building something.
Right.
And so, being able to watch him he's calling me, about the name or the logo, how even seeing everything that he was starting off just from this, from the beginning, was motivating me to go out and even learn more and save more and get to where he was at that point. And then watching his business grow from his yard to his garage to his first warehouse and then, purchasing his own place. We talk all the time. We call each other about the smallest things. And so he's been right there with everybody else. So those are 3 that come off the top of my head. There's so many people now that I've built relationships with though that I will call. I mean, you had Steve Medford on your podcast. He's such a smart dude, and I'll call him about.
Don't say that.
Oh man, he's a smart guy. So I'll call him. There's a ton of them. But those 3 really I call on a daily basis about. All right, this is what I'm starting to think about. Yeah. What do you guys think about this? So
I hate to ask the question because there are, I think if you're a successful person or business person, just if you're not asking for help from people that are smarter or further along than you, then you're making a big mistake.
Big mistake. Yeah.
And everybody's always going to leave some people out that have helped them along the way because you mentioned Eddie. That's one of the things that I've always been, I don't know if surprised is the right word. I don't know him that well, but I was, it just piqued my curiosity how interested he was in helping other, really what people would think of as competitors succeed.
Yeah. And that dude, when it comes to the restaurant business, he's a genius. He's I've been sitting with him having lunch while he's take a call from somebody else in Texas.
Yeah.
Because they've come with problems. They're asking him about things. He is a smart man, and I cannot, if I give one piece of advice to anybody getting in the business, stepping out on their own, whatever it is find people that have already done the things that you want to do. I don't care if it's in the same exact field, but if they're running their own business in some shape or form, you pick people out and you pick their brains and you build a relationship with those people because you're going to learn from their mistakes and not have to go through their mistakes.
One thing about Steve Medford and Eddie for sure. I heard him on your podcast, Eat Slay Live, by the way.
Hey,
from all that for you. Eddie talked about how just amazing how I bet he knows his numbers to the penny, and Steve does too. In terms of, and Steve's been a guest on you're stealing all my guests. But just knowing your numbers is obviously really important in the restaurant business, especially because you've got how much do I order, and I think I've heard that waste can be a big issue. You want to waste as little as possible, right?
I've gotten a lot better at becoming a numbers person. I'm not a numbers person, just generally. That's something I've had to really focus on and get better at. Because you had my industry, you have to know your numbers. But I've never met anybody like Eddie who knows. He can remember. He can look at his numbers and they just stick. I got to put him in Excel spreadsheet. I got to look at him 20 different times. I got to do all the math. It's unbelievable.
On your podcast, he said he could drive by the building, by the parking lot, and know, pretty much within 10 or $20.
Very close.
So that's pretty amazing. And just his willingness to help. And I know you share that in terms of being, I'm sure you've helped Todd and others a lot too in helping them grow their business.
You try. Yeah. I mean, I think it just builds something. You build that relationship, and when people are helping each other, good things come from it.
Yeah. Well, it's nice to have a small business community. That's kind of what this show is all about, trying to help other small business owners grow, because it can be so tough. But it's so important to a community having successful small businesses. I mean, most of us work for a small business, and that's who's donating to little league teams, and that's who's donating to local charities. And it's so important. It's just been so close to my heart for so long. So.
Absolutely. The thing with the community, I mean, you hit it on the head. It's great to build something in the community that you can go out and donate, to your junior Eagles or whatever baseball team, what are junior Redbirds and all that. That's pretty fulfilling, especially when you come from a sports background like myself and my family. It's very rewarding, but to watch then those people from the community come into your place, and we've developed this melting pot of you come in, you never know who you're going to see that you haven't seen in a while or whatever, but it's the atmosphere at our place, what it's grown into is because of our community. It's been amazing to watch and be a part of.
My podcast isn't as long as yours, so we're going to wrap it up pretty quick. But just to promote your podcast briefly, Eat, Slay, Live with your brother Todd, probably one of the best episodes you ever had, was one of the most recent ones, I'm sure.
This guy.
Anything that people that we didn't touch on about Laux Brickhouse that you want people to know?
Man, I not really. Thanks to everybody who supported us in these 8 years almost that it's been. And if anybody hasn't heard of us or hasn't been there yet, I encourage you to come and check it out. I wouldn't be on here if I didn't stand by it and think we really are worth coming to. I wouldn't say it. I really think we are. We got great employees. We got great customers. And I think it's been a real community who's really built it and turned it into what it is. And if you haven't been there, check it out. Appreciate you having me on.
Awesome, man.
Spread the word, man.
Thanks for coming on. Appreciate it, Ross.
Cheers.